Hey, what is up everybody? Blazer here, and today for you guys another video of Persona 5X. Inside today's video, guys, we're going to be going ahead and talking about the persona named Norn here, seeing that this one is a nice valued persona that I know a lot of you guys are probably already building or have built. Now this persona itself does of course exceed in a lot of ways, being either defensive ways or even for single target and AoE type ways as well, but even more so as a little bit of a debuffer, which I know what a lot of you guys are thinking. How can a defense persona be a debuffer? Well, we're going to go ahead and get more into that later on in this video, and I hope you guys really do enjoy it. This persona has a couple different builds, but we're mainly going to be looking at the debuffer side of this build here, seeing that this is what it really excels at the most, especially seeing it's very useful in guild boss and SOS aspects. So without further ado, let's just jump straight into the video, and thank you guys for watching at the moment. All right, let's do it. So the first thing I have to say about Norn is she is amazing. She really does excel a lot in the AoE and single target type aspect. And for this persona itself, it really does enjoy helping out a lot in ways that you didn't think it would exceed in. And that's mainly going to be the debuffing type aspect. Seeing that if we go ahead and gave a good look at its full on passive, you would think more or less it's mainly good at the defensive side, especially seeing that it increases its defense by 37.4%. And then if we actually inflict a winded on status on the enemy, it decreases their defense by 31.5% immediately, and also increases our defense 30% even more so. Now, it seems like it has more pros for defense rather than cons. So how can it be more of a debuffer? Well, the thing that this actual persona does stand a huge chance against is the fact that it can decrease enemies' defense quite easily. Both for single target and AoE aspects, it really does excel at this. And even though it's not as its signature skill, it still does do a little bit of debuffing even more so with that as well. So taking a good look at the signature skill, which is called the Wind Barrier, it will end up granting your allies 19.5%, and this is once Wonder is maxed out, plus a 590% shield for 2 whole turns. It's actually kind of insane that you end up seeing this, and you would think, okay, this is just a shield. But if we are damaged at this point in time, there's a 33.3% going to a max of 35.0% of a base chance inflicting winded on the enemy. So whoever ended up causing you some damage has a higher chance of actually going ahead and proccing this said debuff on themselves, making it so they're windswept, allowing you to deal more damage to them, seeing this decreases their defense by a decent bit, being 12%. Now it only lasts for 2 whole turns, but it's still very helpful, especially seeing you got a shield out the ordeal and now you get a debuff as well. The other thing that this actually does excel at is going to be the defensive side, hence the reason why we're looking at the highlight. The highlight itself grants all allies 48.6% attack plus 1471% of a shield and max for 2 whole turns, which is actually pretty darn nice when you think about it. Though keep in mind, Wonder is not always the best at the defensive capabilities, so it will fall a little flat, but it's still decent to say the least. So what else can we do about this persona? What are some important skills that you really want to utilize on it to really take the best of it to the next level? Well, one of the few things I can say with this persona, there are going to be some important skills that you want to look at first. Now, it can have 2 active skills and then 3 passive skills, but to run this thing optimally, I would suggest you guys to go ahead and use 1 active skill and then 4 passive skill. Reasoning for this, because the other active skill that it does need is more or less a damaging skill. One of them is a single target damaging skill, and the other one is a AoE damaging skill. One of them being is what's called Garudine right here, and the other one is Magarula. Depending on the fight that you're dealing with, if it has a ton of different mobs there, you would end up wanting to bring Magarula. But if it only has a few mobs, or at least 1 mob, Garudine may more or less be better, seeing that of course we end up having higher damage rate here, and if you compare the chances, obviously the single target one is better. But for this video's sake here, seeing that we're going to be testing out the persona itself on a AoE based thing, we're going to use Magarula for now. Now that we have Magarula in place, what is going to be another skill or a couple other passives that you guys really want to go ahead and pertain to? Well, one of the few passives that I would advise you guys to go ahead and look at is going to be the Wind Boost passive. Now this passive you won't get immediately, and you won't have it just by leveling up this persona, so you will have to go ahead and inherit it yourself. but the wind boost passive itself is going to help you out with the damage side. So even though we're using the AoE damaging move, you can still deal a little bit more damage, being 4.7% at wind boost 1. If you want to inherit this as well, you can inherit it very early, and seeing that really it's not the hardest thing to learn. Sure, it still is a little bit of a nuisance to go ahead and get, but it isn't too bad. Wind boost 1 itself comes from Kelpie, in which with this one itself is very easy to get. If you want to get the higher ones, which I do recommend later on, it is going to get a little bit more expensive. Seeing that if we go ahead and check out the wind boost 3, which should be right here, it does need Scadatch here in order to go ahead and get this, which even just trying to fuse does take quite a lot to do so you do have to be kind of careful on what you end up doing here. But I digress. That's just one of the skills that you really want to teach this actual persona. The next skill that I can immediately recommend you guys, and luckily I do have to go ahead and show it, is going to be the attack boost skill. Lucky for you guys, we do get this skill fairly early, or at least you can try to get this pretty early as well. Pretty sure you have to inherit it, because I think the only skills that you end up getting from leveling up is around Zeodyne, Garudyne, resist wind, as well as winded boost, but attack boost is another one that you want to go ahead and inherit. Reason being for this is because at the end of the day, our shield is based a little bit on our attack, and if you are going to use any form of this shield, being that the signature is wind barrier, you do want a little bit of attack on this persona. So you can actually get attack master or attack boost itself if you go ahead and look further in. Let's go ahead and click this. Attack boost 3 itself is coming from Cerberus, in which is going to be one that you utilize quite often, mainly because Cerberus does have attack master as well. So that's one that you can get it from, and if you do have Okanushi here, you can very well strive for it there as well. It can be very expensive, so getting attack boost 2 or 1 could very well be better for you in your long run. Now another skill that you guys want to go ahead and look at, which we're going to go ahead and pull up as well because we do have it already inherited, is more likely than not going to be the EHR boost. Now EHR boost is going to be called the accuracy boost itself, and this is going to help you out with the elemental accuracy by 7%. We only have the first one of it, and the higher you get up, the higher the elemental accuracy will end up being. The reason that we want to go ahead and utilize this is because we do need to make sure that we are proccing that defense down coming from our Magarula. The more elemental accuracy that we end up having, which accuracy boost does help you out with, the better and easier it's going to be with proccing that said debuff. So this is going to be the nice thing that you want to have. Lastly, for your final passive that we are looking for here, I would definitely advise you guys to go ahead and use Windswept Boost. Lucky for a lot of you guys, Windswept Boost is one of the ones that comes with this whole kit here just for leveling up, and that's going to help you out quite a lot. Reasoning for this is because it actually increases Windswept's accuracy specifically for 16.3%. So what better way than actually taking care of this than leveling up persona itself and then getting the persona skill free of charge. These are definitely going to be the ones you want to go ahead and focus in, and it's probably the best build, especially if you're using this for an optimization personally. Now if you wanted to go ahead and use it more of a defender or more of a sustainability type build, you could change a few things around, such as using a shield boost or even a health boost for invigorate. That will help you out, though I wouldn't fully recommend it. So this is probably one of the few builds that you really want to go ahead and go for, depending on the content that you're doing. As I did say before, we're going to be doing content that's AoE, so Magarula is going to be the best bet, but if you're doing a single target type aspect, Garudyne is going to be the next best thing. So let's go ahead and at least show off how this persona does work here. To utilize its actual abilities, it really isn't too hard to go ahead and do so. Lucky for us, it is raining. This would be the perfect time to use ambient aid if you wanted to, but we're not really going to do all that craziness because it's just not worth the time or just reevaluating the entire deal over and over again. So I guess a good way of doing this is to do this with at least a AoE based team in order to go ahead and showcase this off. Now we don't have anyone who really benefits off of this, so I guess I can just use the fire team itself if we can get this clicked on, and we can show exactly how this works. Now for Norn itself, if we went ahead and utilized it first, which is not always the case that you want to go ahead and do, it would end up putting us at a deficit. The reason being is because if we utilized it first, it does of course at least increase our defense, but we have to make sure we're including a winded in order to get that other part of the aspect, for its actual persona based what's called persona based passive. So surely do keep that in mind. So you very well could either set this up either second or as the first persona, but it honestly comes down to you. Now how I'm going to go ahead and do this is we're going to use a team somewhat like this one, and we're mainly going to use Norn in a 2-person or a 2-turn type aspect. So with the first turn, we're going to go ahead and just buff up with our man Dionysus, allowing us to get our crit buffs on off. So let's go ahead and utilize this way. We go ahead and get everything prepared, which I did not mean to do that here. We'll go ahead and get everything prepared and just let's say buff up our on, for example. We should be perfect ways. So first round, let's just go ahead and utilize Revolution to get our crit rate up. Instead of second round using the winded boost, which very well could come in handy, we're not going to do that. We're actually going to go ahead and do this a different way of at least preparing for this. And what I mean by that is we're going to go ahead and then pop off the AoE winded attack in order to then get the defense down on the enemy. Now Norn is a little bit of a tricky one, seeing that we do have to proc a said winded first. It could be one of the few times that you sometimes will start with this in the first turn. Though I do try to recommend them being more of a second type turn persona here, because usually your first turn you want to start prepping that whole deal. You want to start prepping your damage rounds itself and getting everything ready. So since we use Dionysus first, we still have our crit damage buff. Now that we're actually in our second turn here, let's go ahead and prep up for the next hit. Now I'm going to go ahead and use this as well, so then we can get our stacks on ready for on to deal her skill 3 damage as well. But right here, we're gonna go ahead and swap over the Norn, in which you have two different choices. You can either use Wind Barrier, which would make us be for the third turn will be our damage round, which we do not want to do, or either we can go ahead and use Magarula. We're gonna go ahead and use Magarula here because of course there's 3 enemies, and if we do proc a Windswept on any of those, we immediately get that defense down. Just by going ahead and doing that, we can go ahead and look at our actual allies type aspect, and we should have a lovely defense boost as well, which will come in handy. Though that only procs, and I mean this will only end up proccing if and only if we hit that winded. Luckily for us, we did end up doing this, so we're increasing our defense by 30%, which is kind of weird that it's not here. It's supposed to be here anyways, but I guess for some reason we're not getting to see that, which is really weird. But I think that's because we have to attack again afterwards. Unsure why it's not showing up though. It really does show up sometimes. So maybe that's just a counterpart on my part. I'm not perfect, so that is a little bit of a mistake. But now we have at least our 2 people who are winded. The other side of the same coin, that luckily since they're in this winded status, we're now giving them a defense decrease by 31.5%. This is something that comes only from the Winds of Fate type persona aspect here, or the passive itself. So we do have to make good use of this, seeing that we just ended up doing this. So now that we have them defense down, we're going to use our more powerful move using the skill 3, which deals some devastational type damage. This is more or less the way you want to go ahead and utilize Norn, but there is one other way that we can go ahead and use the actual setup as well. So we're going to go ahead and show that off as well. Instead of this time having the Windswept second or going ahead and buffing the first turn, we're going to go ahead and do this in a little bit of a way that's more of a 3-turn aspect. So let's do this in a way where our now new Norn setup is going to be the Wind Barrier first. This allows the enemy to go ahead and give us an attack here and have a good chance of proccing the winded status effect on themselves. So let's use this. Get this on set up. I'm just going to go ahead and actually buff myself. And then we're going to use the Wind Barrier. With this in mind here, we now have our shield for 2 whole turns, which is absolutely nice. Also, alongside of doing this here, the shield is pretty darn decent, and we get a lovely Echo Barrier, which is 24% whenever, of course, we are shielded, which is actually pretty darn nice. Now, with this in mind, let's just go ahead and use our first skill. The real magic is going to happen when they end up attacking us. So since that's an AoE attack, he has a chance of giving himself Windswept, which luckily he ended up doing. Now that we've triggered Windswept on him, and that's all the one that we ended up triggering, we can end up going ahead and buffing ourselves and preparing for our damage round, which is going to be on the 3rd round. We have to make sure we don't kill. So our first things first here, what I'm going to go ahead and do is make sure at all costs the next round is going to be amazing for our damage. So let's just get our attack up quick, which technically only lasts for one whole round, so I technically should have saved it for the next one, but that's besides the point. So just go ahead and use this, and then we have to go ahead and use one more match, or at least one more hit, in order to really take advantage over this. So let's use our Revolution. Revolution is now preparing us for the crit rate side of things, and seeing we don't have our lovely fire down there, we don't have to use this as our real damage round. Use skill 2 or skill 1. Now preparing everything perfectly for the next round to come, seeing that our third round is going to be our 3-turn rotation. Now that everyone's all set up and we have everything that we do need in order, let's go ahead and put back on Norn, getting us our lovely old setup with that passive decreasing their defense by 31.5%. So let's make sure everyone's all healed up, meaning we get that lovely Starfire buff. Then we're going to go ahead and swap back over to Norn, use Magarula. We have only one Windswept, which is perfectly fine. It's still a defense down. And by going ahead and checking this, we can see Windswept is already doing 12%. And then if we check again, 31.5%, luckily from the passive itself. And then all we have to do here, increase our fire damage and follow up with a skill 3. Now, it already died from that, but you guys get the gist. We got even more so damage out of it by doing a 3-turner. So you guys got to see a 2-turn aspect and a 3-turn aspect. You want the 2-turner, which is the one I used the first time around, at least the first time around. You would end up using Windswept boost, or at least Magarula first, and then going into the other side. Though that's not all the time to need it. Now, if you want the 3-turn aspect, which is the one I do prefer a lot of you guys to go ahead and do, you might want to try that secondary way. But for now, thank you guys for watching this video here. I got a little bit messed up on where it came down to the defense increase there, which was rather weird. Normally it does proc. It procced the second time, so I might have done it a little bit wrongly, so I do apologize about that. But now that we went through that, thank you guys for watching, and peace on out.